All right, welcome to the Songwriters Couch, brought to you by the Patrick Jaouen Band. We're on episode number 3. We've got sponsors coming in the door, and we're very excited about them. And we're going to announce it soon. And we're going to have little commercials that are coming about, and we'll have some new stuff to drink in here. And on today's show, we've got Shelby.
Hi.
Shelby, how's it going, man?
Pretty good.
And you've brought a special little instrument here. Maybe you could just tickle it just a little bit, just so people can hear. Just a. And why don't you? What's the name of that there instrument?
This is called a harpeji. It's an instrument that a company called Marcotti started building out of Maryland. Marcotti is a guy, the name of the guy who designed it out of Italy. And then these people, this little family down in Maryland, started making them in 2007. And
how'd you pick it up?
Well, I saw a video online of, I can't remember which one it was first. It might have been Stevie Wonder. It might have been Jacob Collier. You know Jacob Collier?
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone knows Stevie Wonder, but maybe Collier's still.
I've heard of him. I couldn't tell you this is like his album, this is his song or anything like that, but I definitely have heard his name before.
He's hot out
is
there.
He?
Oh yeah, he's super hot,
right.
And in a real creative musical dynamo, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinions, I think.
All right, so why don't we start out by this, because I know you described the instrument, but let's describe you first, Shelby. So what is it you do musically? What is it you kind of want to be doing, I guess, in the future? And then do you have anything you want to kind of promote right out of the gate here that, website, your Facebook, something like that?
Sorry, I'm still a little caught up on the harpeji thing.
Yeah.
Caught me off guard there. I don't really have anything I like to promote.
Okay.
But I do have an Instagram called Michael Shelby Music.
There you go.
Where I occasionally post some things that I've created. I have a Bandcamp called Michael Shelby, and I have a demo up there with some of the tunes. The tune I plan on playing later, I have posted up on there, for example.
Awesome.
But yeah, my musical journey and my whole songwriting thing has been really, really. I don't know what other people's stories are like, but mine's been like a whirlwind of ups and downs. Like I tried to quit a couple times.
You tried to quit playing music altogether?
Music, yeah. Oh, wow. To figure out what else is out there.
Yeah. Well, why don't we get back to kind of the beginning then, I guess. So what got you into music in the first place?
Oh, yeah.
Is it like your family was into music, or was it just friends, or is it just, songs you heard and you were, like, oh, I want to do that?
I was thinking about how to answer this because I knew you were going to ask me this,
yeah.
And I came up with at least a few different ways to start. I think that is to say, like, I have trouble figuring out which memory is the earliest. I don't come from a particularly musical family or anything like that. I came into being interested about playing music when I was a teenager. Green Day was really big. I was getting into them and some other like punks, quasi pop punk before there was really a genre pop punk. But even before then, I have this really specific memory. Do you remember that song? They're kind of a one-hit wonder by Harvey Danger. It's called Flagpole Sitta.
She knows. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know it. Yeah, I didn't know the name of it. That's the name of it? Is
Flagpole Sitta. I didn't know the name of it either the first time I heard it. I had no idea what I was hearing.
Yeah.
But I was probably 11 or 12, and it was like something about that song hit me so hard on the radio that it was rolling in my mind. When I don't remember, I must have been on the bus or got out of the car or something.
Yeah.
Got home. And I was so infatuated with it, and it was just pulsing in my mind. It was the first time I ever got out a piece of paper and a pen, and I started writing the lyrics. I started writing the lyrics that I thought I knew to that song, which were all fucked up anyway.
Yeah.
Because
I think that's a tough song to figure out the lyrics.
There's a lot of words
too. Yeah,
in
there's
it,
a lot.
and it's fast. Yeah, the guy's delivery is clean, but there's a lot coming at you, like some of those Bare Naked Ladies songs.
So that was one of the first songs that you're like, oh, I want to kind of try and do that. Or
I wasn't into playing music at the time. I didn't know what I was doing. I just was taken over by the song.
Right.
And I found myself trying to like do something with it. I don't even know what happened. I probably didn't make it past the first verse, but so that was all in my early teenage years. I knew that I was getting into music as a listener, and I had expressed some desire to play. My dad, this was at a house like 2 blocks away from here, by the way. Coming back to this area is a trip because I grew up around here. This is like life 1.0 for me in this neighborhood. Essentially.
Really?
Yeah.
So you grew up kind of in this area, and for anyone watching, it's the Greece, New York area.
Yeah. I don't know how detailed you're willing to get here.
Yeah, no, I don't want to give out my address just yet.
Until
we have a P.O. box.
2 blocks to the north.
Right on.
The street off of the main street that you're next to. That's where I grew up, and that's where I requested a guitar for my 13th birthday.
All right.
Also, the day I remember this quite clearly, I got my first pimple. Looking at the mirror.
The day that you requested the guitar, you also got the first pimple?
The day we went to go get it. Literally my 13th birthday. Get into the car. We're going to go to House of Guitars. Going to go find something sweet.
Yeah.
And I'm looking in the mirror, waiting for my dad to get in the car, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? It's like, oh my God.
So you definitely became a teenager that day,
I was officially
wanting to
stamped.
wanting to play guitar, getting a pimple, all those things are like exactly like the teenage trajectory.
Yeah, all at once.
So were you a child? Were you a teenager in the 90s?
Yeah, this would have been. So I was born in '86. So this would have been like in 90, 93, 94, I guess.
All right. So
I'm sorry, like 98, 90. 97, 98.
Okay. Have you seen Green Day in concert ever?
No.
Yeah, they're great. I saw them at the end of the Dookie tour at Madison Square Garden. And apparently I watched some documentary recently, and they weren't supposed to actually play Madison Square Garden at the beginning of that. Like what kind of happened was they ended up getting more and more famous as the tour went on, and then they ended up having to book like Madison Square Garden because there wasn't a big enough venue in New York that they were playing. So luckily they did, and we ended up getting tickets or whatever. I ended up getting kicked out for reasons I'll leave and getting back in. But
that's for when you're the guest.
Well, yeah, host, that's right. That's right. You can ask that one. But they were great in concert. I haven't seen them since, but
oh man,
I love
right
them.
When I was getting the shit beat out of me in middle school, and
really? Well, what a great
Dookie
band
was
to be.
Huge, and I have this distinct memory of Green Day was the first band I latched onto as a fan, and I found a Green Day patch, and I put it on my backpack, and I remember wearing it to middle school, of course, Arcadia.
I wonder, do kids put patches on their bags now? I know they put like buttons and stuff and stickers. My kids like the stickers. But that was such a big thing, the patches back then.
It was normal. And this guy, his name was Kenny, popular guy. By the way, I wasn't very popular in middle school, in case you couldn't imagine. Comes up to me at the end of school. We're all walking out to the buses. He's like, "Oh, you got a Green Day patch. Cool. You like Green Day?" And I was like, "Yeah, man." I'm just kind of like stoked that somebody was talking to me, and it was about something I liked.
Oh, and he was into Green Day
too. He's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, he's like, "What's their bass player's name?" That's like the first thing he asked me. And I go, of course I read the liner notes like everybody else would on a CD that you get CDs. I'm like, "Mike Dirnt." And he goes, "What's his real last name?" And
he's trying to pull his
rank on me, dude. I was like, I don't know.
That's funny. Was he a musician too, or
I have no idea. That was like the only time I ever spoke to that guy. It was just this.
And he challenged you on your Green Day knowledge.
He gate kept me before that was really a thing.
That's crazy.
And looking back, I think about that interaction often because the cycles that I've gone through with music and creativity and stuff, like that seed of a memory is like the antithesis of where I wound up. And I wonder sometimes if I like that negative interaction, I walked away from feeling.
Oh, so you felt negative after it?
Yeah, he kind of tried to punk me out for not
Right.
knowing the bass player's real name.
Right.
Nor did he say that he knew the name. He just
I'll say something. Nothing bothers me more than musicians that try and like show each other up to, especially like in the scene and stuff, where they're like, oh, I know more technically, I did this. Like sometimes you have a conversation, you're like, oh, I played the show, it was a lot of fun, and I played, and like, oh, well, I played this bigger thing that was so much better. Like, stop doing that, guys. All right, music isn't a competition, even though there's the Grammys and all that stuff where supposedly it's a competition. It's not a competition. We're all just kind of expressing ourselves, and most of us are in the same kind of boat that you're saying you were in middle school and whatever, where you're trying to figure out what life is about, who you are, all that stuff. And it's funny when you say like you weren't popular. I don't think honestly anyone, well, I mean, you could be popular, but no one had any idea what they were doing. Even the popular kids were trying to figure themselves out at that point. You know what I mean? So
true.
I don't think any of us had it easy. Like as I get older now, I kind of like have less and less like judgment for what what was going on back then, because everyone's just grasping at straws. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you found music, which is great.
I did, yeah. So
unless
back
it
at
wasn't
that
great
time,
for you.
Well, I didn't. Yeah, here comes the first U-turn. So I got that guitar at 13, and my dad bought me the guitar. My mom bought me some lessons at the Hog. And I went to the first lesson and didn't have a great time. The teacher was kind of a dick, but he showed me a couple things and he sent me home with some work to do. So I went home and tried to learn an E major chord and a C major chord, A, so on and so forth. And come back the next week, and I honestly don't remember what happened, but I remember walking out of the lesson in tears and telling my mom I'm never playing again. And went home and tell my dad, I'm like, I'm done. And I just sold the guitar and didn't think much of it. It was like, I tried it out and it was a bad time.
Yeah.
Speaking of not knowing what you were doing, I was very much still a kid and very much didn't have a clue what the fuck I was doing.
And you don't remember what the experience, like, was it something with the teacher or something he said or something?
I don't. I was a very, very sensitive kid. And the guy I remember his whole vibe was very kind of just like, well, blasé. Like he didn't care about teaching me anything. And I don't remember what happened, but I remember being very disappointed. And sometimes, at that age, that would drive me to tears. Yeah, just like being shredded inside.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of being a musician, though, too, is being really in tune with that stuff. Like most musicians I know, especially guys tend to be like people don't expect a lot of emotion out of men in general, right? I'm speaking generally here. Don't cancel me on episode 3. But like, I think I'm the same way. I'm very sensitive, like, to the emotions of people around me and what's going on, and things affect me, and I'll think about them for months and months and months, like these little things that maybe the other person never thought about again after that second that it happened, but I'll run it over and over and over again in my head. But I think that's what makes good musicians too, is because that rumination or that self-examination, so to speak, or examination of what you're feeling emotionally, if you can channel that into something like music, that's what helps people to then relate to what you're doing. If you're trying to write a song and you're just trying to write a popular song, I don't think it comes out as good, or I don't think the songs are as strong as if it's coming from a place that's, an honest emotion that you've examined.
You're right on the money, man.
And almost tried to like get it out because it just hurts for it to be inside. So you write a song so that it's out there, and then you can play it and feel the emotion. It's almost like therapy, I think I said that a couple of times.
That's where I've come to lately with music, and my relationship with it is more of a therapeutic expression than a creative pursuit or any kind of attempt to
make it.
I mean, a big part of my making it was always something. It's always something in the back of my mind, of course.
Yeah, I think every musician is like, but it's so weird too. Again, like as I get older, I'm like, what does making it kind of mean? Like, does that mean I have to be like
I've
Michael Jackson?
I've
or is
redefined
it
making
like,
it many times in order to keep my head up, basically, and
Yeah.
to not get down on myself.
well, what happened? So you gave up at least temporarily.
So that at the teenage era, I was like in it, and then I was out of it, and I went through high school. I ended up leaving Greece and moved out to Pittsburgh when my dad remarried, and I ended up going to Fredonia to study whatever the hell I was going to study. It was nothing related to music. And
this whole time you're not
I was
learning guitar.
No, in high school I wasn't playing any music. I was like,
I'm sure you were
I was
listening.
to like a bunch of popular shit. I would like I didn't have a lot of taste in high school. I'll tell you this. My buddy Adam turned me on to some really good music, and we connected on grunge pretty much and Pearl Jam. We would just like.
I'm so glad there's a Rochester person that listens to Pearl Jam, because I think they're a fucking phenomenal band, and everyone's like, oh, they're boring nowadays. I don't get it. I'm like, have you heard like some of like Vitology? It's like it's the craziest fucking album.
It is wild. Yeah, they're not resting on their laurels by any means.
Yeah, and they're still out there.
Oh yeah,
making albums and stuff.
Eddie
That's
Vedder,
awesome.
Man.
I really
Vedder
like
himself is just like a fucking blessing to our generation,
right?
But yeah, so like I was listening to Green Day still, and like this was in the era.
Were you into Nirvana?
I was into Nirvana a little bit. Didn't really vibe too much on the really dark stuff.
Yeah.
But it was popular, so I was scooping up what was popular and what resonated with me. But at the same time, I was interacting with a different strata of people when I moved to Pittsburgh, and so I started also getting exposed to a bunch of weird stuff and a bunch of like, well, I call it weird in comparison to my musical taste now, but I was listening to like hip hop and like whatever. I remember Breaking Benjamin was like big for a while, and those guys were pretty cool. I thought I didn't have like a real specific taste. I was just sort of whatever, whatever was cool, whatever felt cool. I didn't think about it.
I feel like the '90s were kind of like that too, though. I mean, everyone was kind of into like
it was cool
a little
to have
hip
a little bit of
hop,
everything.
like you could be into Sublime, but then also like Wu-Tang and like Salt and Pepper.
This was like the TRL era where like things that were popular, what genres weren't as specific. You could still sell music with a genre, but you could like multiple genres. We were beginning to be accepting in that kind of variegated way. But then I eventually made it to Fredonia, and this was when everything changed. Within like the first year of being there, I started making friends with a bunch of musicians, not just musicians, but like serious musicians that were going to Fredonia to like get an arts degree in music. And I also started smoking a lot of weed, taking psychedelics, and listening to Fish. All these things started happening right around like 2005, and I got into Fish really heavily. I listened to Fish almost exclusively for like 2 or 3 years.
I never ended up getting into them. I do like the ice cream, the Ben and Jerry's.
Fish food, sure, yeah.
No, but
potential sponsor.
Yeah, there we go. If we want Ben and Jerry's, that would be perfect.
I could go. I
don't know why.
Right
there
now.
were a few of my friends that were really into Fish and
if you get into them, you
and
fucking get into them. And the jam scene. That's where I started to really let go of how music for some people was like something. It was like like apparel. It was a part of their personality, or it was like the color shirt they were wearing. Like, yeah, I'm into this band.
Right.
Whereas when I got into Fish and I started going to jam band shows, I also got heavily into the Disco Biscuits. I began to realize
never heard them before, but
oh, dude,
I have to check it out.
Jamtronica. You ever heard that term? Jamtronica.
No, so it's like electronic jam music.
Like just jam bands with synths. Pretty much is like the simplest way to describe it. I could show you some shit that might knock your socks off. You might not like it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I like music that is like speaking. Recently I've gotten into some pop music too, where I'm like, oh, it's interesting what they're doing and what have you. But for the most part, back in the '90s, like when I was a teenager too, I mean, Nirvana. I was 13, I think. In 93 is when Nevermind came out, right? Or maybe it was before that. I don't fucking know.
93.
I'm not an encyclopedia. But
yeah,
like that whole 90s era of music, I was into literally everything. Anything that was good. Ali Farka, Torre, like a bunch of like weird, eclectic like music from all over the place. Do you know Mr. Bungle? I feel like you should know Mr. Bungle.
I don't think so.
So the lead singer of Faith No More has a bunch of bands like Phantoma and Tomahawk and all these crazy bands. But Mr. Bungle was like this. It's almost like carnival music. So like it's hard to explain, like crazy heavy metal carnival music. So it feels like you're in a psychotic carnival. Is the only way I can explain. You'll probably like Mr. Bungle if you listen to him.
Yeah, it's these days I kind of like to be shocked.
Yeah,
Not necessarily with music, but occasionally with music. But more
like with a taser. Kind of
I don't know. I haven't tried it yet. I might like it.
So you started getting into all that kind of like eclectic stuff, and obviously Fish.
Yeah, like,
and it changed the way you felt about music in what way? Like, so
to put it properly, I started playing music at the same time that I really started to listen to music. Before I was into Fish and into really playing, music was always just kind of around. I didn't really like connect to the music. And then it was like right around 2005, 2006, I got my first guitar again. I got an electric guitar. This was after maybe a few months of like my buddies letting me just mess around with their acoustic and letting me try to remember what I learned 10 years ago. Or I guess it would have been like 5 years ago at that time. And eventually started like working up some chops. And my best friend at the time who had gotten me into Fish, he started playing bass just at the same time that I started playing guitar. And so we started just jamming. Like, it was just what we did all the time.
Yeah.
Smoking weed, go for a walk or something, go home and play music. And we play video games together too. So we were like brothers, and we were just like woodshedding all day. And
do you have siblings also?
No, like real siblings. I do have I have like a half brother and a bunch of step brothers and sisters, and then a couple half sisters. It's a big story, dude.
But like, so the reason I asked that is because my older brother plays guitar. And so very similarly, I mean, from the time I don't even know how old, just 8 years old or whatever, that's what we did. Even my dad, my dad's a musician. So it was almost like that's how we talked to each other.
Oh, interesting.
And I said something recently because my piano player, Garrigan, is one of the few people that were not part of my family that I feel that same way when I play music with him. And not to say anything about the rest of the band too, that it's very similar with the rest of the band, but Garrigan in particular was the first person out of the band where I felt like this, he feels like he's a part of my family musically, if that makes sense. So like,
so
it's
you grew up playing with both your dad and your brother,
like,
just
so
jamming and
like
learning tunes and stuff.
Yeah, like me and my older brother, when we get together, right, we hardly even speak to each other. It's mostly we both have guitars. We're sitting in the room and we're just playing back and forth for like, even if he's here for a week, the whole week, maybe we say like 3 words to each other, but we're playing back and forth with guitars the whole time.
That's
so
cool.
that feeling of like, it's just like, it's not part of my personality. It's like, it's a compulsion almost. Like I have to make music.
Yeah.
I have to play. It's like speaking or breathing or
yeah.
So it's interesting to hear you like come like into that kind of later or find someone that you feel that way when you play music with them.
Yeah, it's boy. I do have to say that to set the record straight, so to speak, my half brother TC, he's older than me. He's 7 years older than me. He played guitar like in his teenage years. So there was like kind of a guitar around me,
like in the house.
Yeah, we never lived together for that long. At any point in time, he was like kind of all over the place. And I remember him showing me how to play One, that Metallica song, like the intro to One, when I was really young. I totally forgot about that.
Do you know how to play it on that thing? It's probably a little harder. There you go.
Yeah, I don't know what that.
I will tell you something, Shelby. You're making me a little jealous because I think I'm going to have to get one of those now for the house here because I've got every other instrument here, but I think I'm going to have to.
If you have a house harpeji, I'll come over anytime.
Oh,
you
yeah,
want, man.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we got it on tape now, so you gotta live up to that.
This thing's super cool.
So we'll try and keep it linear, right? So you got into music with this individual. Did you start a band with him?
Yeah, so we were so into Fish that like we ended up trying to start a Fish cover band, and we found a drummer and a keyboardist that our drummer was better than either Mike or I were at his instrument and our instruments. This guy was a phenom. His name's Dan Knorr. If you know, he's still in Rochester. I think he's at the Hog teaching lessons. But yeah, so like. I mean, that whole era, I was still, I kind of put things in 3 eras. There's the 1.0 era where I barely tried and quit. There was an extended 2.0 era where I was obsessed with jam bands and improvisation and obsessed with trying to find the right guys to do that kind of band, which was like, let's all join a family and play together as much as possible until the musical communication is probably much like what you're talking about with your father and your brother. Yeah,
it's like you just feel it. There's no like, this is where we're going. This is the key we're in. It's what you feel. And
like connecting on a level below the conscious thought era. And then like, so I was hopeful for that to happen with my best friend for a while. And I think we tried to make it happen, but we always had different takes. And then when we ended up parting ways, I kept trying to make that happen with different people and different groups for a long time. And I was even trying to do it up until like a few years ago. So this was, most of my 20s and into my early 30s, I was like, well, there's kind of a hitch in the story here because in around 2013, I kind of came to the realization that I was having some nerve and pain problems in my left hand. So I was playing a lot, and I was using kind of improper technique, and I ended up really fucking up my ulnar nerve in this area in my wrist where the nerve passes through, and I ended up getting myself into a place where I could really only play for like 30 minutes or so until I was having like significant pain, and these 2 fingers would just go numb, and I'd be playing with numb fingers, and I was like, this is weird, but I love playing. And
it helps if you don't have calluses, right? If you don't have calluses on there, then as long as it's numb, you're good to go, right?
I mean, yeah, right. I was like, as long as it sounds good, like I didn't want to think something was wrong. I was unwilling to accept that maybe something was wrong because I was finally finding something that I could like. I felt as though I could give myself to it, and it was safe. And but I was doing some damage, and so I had just started a band called Native Tongue, and I was like, I can't play guitar anymore. I had started to learn how to play synth a little bit and keys to do some production at that point. But I was like, this is cool. Like, and I was able to play keys without having the pain happen for whatever reason. My physiology, like just having my arm in a different position, didn't cause a problem. So I pretty much quit guitar at the time. I sold my guitar stuff, put the money into keyboards, and started like very heavily trying to learn how to play keys and do a lot of catch up, basically.
How did that go? How was the learning process on that? Did you feel like you like started over from scratch?
Cool because it was like and a similar thing happened when I started playing this, but it was nice because I already knew kind of what I wanted to do. I didn't have to explore so much with like theory and just like figuring out vibes and stuff, and I had some rhythm already, and like I was already a bit of a musician at that time, so it was definitely easier to learn, and I also found that it was way easier to just play a keyboard like theory and ideas came out easier on a piano interface than on a guitar.
Yeah.
Guitar is a very specific thing. And so that I kept playing keys for the next 6 or 7 years, and that probably brings us up to a few years ago where I basically had gotten really jaded with trying to make a band happen. I was working really hard and, supporting myself like everybody else, but working really hard to develop the band and to try to push myself. And it's one of those things where like it just continually didn't happen. We kept trying to find people to play. People would come and people would quit. We tried to find gigs, couldn't find gigs, and we're like, what the hell are we doing this for? And, I had been in a band for like 2 years, and we hadn't played out.
Were you primarily, I'm guessing, in Rochester, right?
Uh-huh.
Rochester's a little bit tough. I found the scene, and I'm from New York City. I grew up in Queens, originally Jackson Heights, right? Oh, yeah.
If I hit a little bit more of that.
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you.
And so
Jackson Heights, okay.
So because there's so many like music schools here, and there's a lot of really great musicians here.
Yeah, Rochester's weird.
There's a lot of competition, so it almost feels like people want to not necessarily support everyone as much as maybe you'd get in a small town. Not many musicians in town.
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
Music's cheap in Rochester.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
yeah. There's a little more like I'm going to do my thing as a musician. You do your thing, but we're not going to interact necessarily, which I don't like that. I think there's not, music isn't a competition. I think everyone is going to do their music their specific way, right? Even if you're covering a song, you're going to do it the way Shelby covers the song, you know what I mean? And I think there are going to be people that like what you do, and then there's going to be people that like what I do, and then there's going to be people that hate what I do, and vice versa. And it's like we're not competing. I would love to expand my horizons by working with musicians and working with people that I maybe wouldn't normally too, because then it changes the way I think about how I approach music too, Like I feel like I need to constantly be expanding it. But Rochester, I think growing up here and playing music might have been a little different. Although New York is super competitive too, if I'm being honest. Like it's not an easy market to be playing music in. But
I think I think everybody knows to a certain extent that music isn't supposed to be a competition. However, I think in the culture that we've grown up in, competition is built into our DNA. Yeah. And whether we like it or not, this is me just speaking personally. To this day, I struggle with this. Like, I know it's not a competition, but I also can't help but compare myself to others. Yeah. In a sense of who's better, who's worse. Even when it comes, it's like it doesn't even have to be a competition for you to like somebody else's taste, and like, look at your own taste and with this sort of side eye and be like, I wish I wasn't myself.
I wish I had more eclectic taste in music, that sort of thing.
Yeah, or like I can't tell you how many times I've thought, boy, I wish I grew up like learning how to play, or I wish I grew up the way that person
playing
grew up,
classical
so
piano or something. I think about that too.
It's been. Every day I remind myself that I don't need to think that way. Thinking that way is only going to get in the way of me being myself and me truly offering to the world something unique. Getting back to what you were saying earlier, that the whole era of my jam band era, I was really trying to find my own voice by emulating my heroes. And at a certain point, I realized I remember my buddy Corey putting this so simply for me one day. He's like, Shelby, dude, we're not fish. I'm like, fuck, you're right, dude. Like we're never gonna be that. Yeah. And to try to ever hold yourself up to any other art or artist is a mistake. So
what's really funny? So I watched some interview. I forget who it was with, and I think there's going to be a theme on this podcast. Of I watched an interview and I don't remember who it is because I forget names. Like it's
but
like
they
it's
said stuff, right?
But yeah. So no, but here's what they said. They said every time as a musician, and I'm sure you feel this way too. Every time you go to a concert or you see someone performing and you're in the audience and you're looking up on stage, you're like, you're like, oh, I would do this. Like you're kind of in the back of your mind, oh, I would be doing this if I was on stage. Oh, I could do it better than what's going on. But he was watching a YouTube video of himself from like 5 years ago. And he said the first thing he thought was, I could play that better than that guy. And it was himself from like 5 years ago.
That might be the only time it's actually true.
Yeah, that's like the perfect epitome of like what a musician thinks when they're watching other musicians play. It's like oh, I want to get up there and I could perform a little bit better than what's happening up there. And same, I feel the same as you. Like it's inevitable you're going to be a little bit competitive because you want ears too. You want people to be listening to you.
It's built into the way we think socially. Socialization is sort of a competition in a way, vying for attention. It's all about attention, and we have limited resources, i.e. time in life, and so we have to sort of compete in a way for attention. This is what freaks me out about social media and stuff, and we're just, people are becoming totally accepting of the idea of trying to vie for somebody's attention by doing the most outlandish stuff, and it's like, that's fucked up. That's a dark place to be psychologically.
Yeah, and it's not even something where it's like a talent or something. Like it's just like you do anything just to get people to click on it or what have you.
Yeah, crazy, really.
So let me ask you this. So okay, so you had your jam band kind of like phase, and then at some point that changed, right? And
it was shortly after Corey told me we're not Fish,
right?
And I remember very clearly this one day where I really think I wrote my first song, my first real song. And I had probably written, I'd written multiple records worth of electronic music, and I had experimented with many, many different things, done tons of recording at that point already, and written a lot. But I never was really proud of what I did. They were always exercises and like just ideas, never really something I felt deep down like I had to get out. And then I remember this one day, my grandparents are from Elmira, and went down there with my mother and my brother I referenced earlier, TC, and it was a particularly bleak visit. Some of them were usually okay, but this one was particularly bleak, and the drive home was kind of sad. It was kind of raining, and my brother and mother had both fallen asleep, and I was driving my mom's car, and I was just kind of bored. And I was like, man, I can't wait to get home and just like sit down and maybe play some music and kind of recenter myself after kind of getting out of my comfort zone for a while. And I went home, and I had an upright piano in my loft at the time, and I sat down, and 3 chords just came out. This is actually what I was going to ask you to play earlier, but maybe I'll play this one later.
Yeah.
3 chords came out, and I just heard like, oh, like that's beautiful. Very, 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 very simple. It's like a 1-5-4, and I just kind of accepted it. And then all of a sudden, I don't remember what came lyric-wise first, but I found myself writing these words down. And it wasn't like it wasn't me trying to be clever anymore. It wasn't me trying to sound cool. It was like I have this feeling, and all of a sudden there are words about the feeling. And the feeling was me connecting to the music, those simple chords. I was like, they made. I was like, I realized in that day, I had been playing piano for a long time at that point, and constantly kind of judging myself, always thinking, oh, you need to be better. If I keep thinking you need to be better, then you'll get better, because I'll keep trying. But that day I sat down, and I'm like, you don't need to be better, just chill. And I found myself with this feeling, and like this sort of pride almost of how far I had come and what I could do without really having to try that hard. And that's when these lyrics came, and the song is called Golden Lights, and I couldn't play it through because I kept crying when I'd start playing it. It just felt so heavy, and it meant so much to me. It took me many, many tries of learning how to play it to like get to the end without me just falling apart. And so now at this point, it's like I look back at my trajectory and I put a demarcation point right there, and I was like, that's when I started to find something new, like a real, true creative voice inside of me. And it didn't have to be a song with like 15 sections and key changes and a bunch of orchestration. It didn't have to be anything crazy. It just had to be real. And that was like, probably 2015 or so, 2016. I still tried to quit after that. I tried to quit like real life in general.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I sold all my gear, sold my car, and started hiking the Appalachian Trail like indefinitely.
Yeah.
And ended up traveling around the world for like a summer, and got jaded. Thought I was going to travel forever. It sucked.
Yeah,
it sucked for me at least. I was pretty fucked up at the time. I was pretty much just really depressed.
Yeah,
and really angry at the country and the world for my life, for everybody's life, for all the pain and the suffering happening, and the way money works in this world, and the way that like I won't go into all that darkness, but we all know it's there.
So that song that you said where you like as you struggle to get through it, I've written a few songs now where I've written songs where I have to learn the song that I just wrote because I can't play it. Like I can't play it yet. Like my song "Hey You," I don't know if you ever heard that song, but that song when I first wrote it, I wrote it because I had recorded it like on my iPhone or whatever, like just into the thing, and then it took me 3 weeks to be able to play it again from that original thing and writing the lyrics and all that stuff. And even to this day, every time we get a new, like if we have a new drummer or we have a new musician, it takes them a while to like get onto that song because it's such a weird rhythm. And I'm not technically very good. Like I don't know scales. I don't know like theory on music. I don't know any of that stuff. It's literally just like what I feel about, what I'm playing and the lyrics and such. And we talked on the last episode too about like where songs come from, and I'll ask you that question in a minute.
Okay.
But I kind of am interested now that you say that, where you sat down, and that's the moment where you. I feel like almost you became a songwriter.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you're right. Yeah.
And so agree. Now when you approach songwriting, because obviously in the past you were kind of writing from a technical sense. Okay, is this technically good? Is someone else going to like it? And that's what I was saying before, right? Like you're writing for someone else, and now it's like, oh, I'm writing to get this out of me. And I guarantee that people relate more to that than what you were doing before.
I know I relate more to that.
Yeah,
for sure.
So like now, when you write a song, how do you approach a new? Like if you're going to go write, right? Do you say I'm going to sit down? I'm going to write a song, or is it like this comes from some weird magical place that I don't know where the hell it comes from, but somehow this appeared in my lap all of a sudden?
So
this is the question we're trying to get to the bottom of. Where's the camera for this podcast? So by the end of this,
where songs come from,
20 years from now, when we're on episode 20,067, we'll have found it out.
Why not 20,069?
I like 69. That's good. But 20,069, that's the number, right? When we get to that episode, we'll finally figure it out where songs come from.
That's a good sample size.
But how do you approach songwriting now? Like, is it something that just comes out? Is it?
Even before I was a songwriter, I believed that that the creative voice was connected to like God. To put a simple word on it, or maybe shall we say like the source energy. In fact, I've done there's some books, really interesting books I've read about like music, art, creativity, and connecting these attributes of life to like a deeper meaning to a spirituality and to a source being, if you will. I'm not a religious person.
Yeah, I didn't take you as like being religious. Me either. I went to Catholic school, all that stuff.
Oh, I'm
like,
sorry.
Yeah, I am too. No, but I learned.
They make you say you're sorry.
Yeah,
don't you?
they do a lot. I'm sorry.
Still doing it.
But I feel like I actually got quite a bit now in my older age. Like I'm kind of glad that some of the morality stuff that was done back then was good. Some of it's,
Respect.
Yeah,
I think religion's a lot of things for a lot of people.
But when I say like where do songs come from, and I say the word God, I mean like where it's coming from somewhere, and it's not from in here. Maybe it is.
Well,
but it doesn't feel like it's coming from here. It doesn't feel like I'm thinking about it.
Right. So this is actually something I was hoping would come up, because ideas in general. Here's an idea for you to chomp on. Maybe you've heard this before. I tend to think of like our brains or our mind or even maybe our consciousness or something. It kind of operates like a radio, and we pick up on frequencies which are ideas. So like when weird ideas come to your head, or even not weird ideas, they come to you because you're tuned to that frequency in the idea space. I really do believe this. I believe there's like a non-corporeal dimension of reality where ideas exist, and they seek out carriers to manifest the idea into this reality. Huh. And so like when a song, when you develop yourself as a musician or a songwriter, and you tune yourself in, and you something like an idea or a art creative idea comes to you, it's your responsibility at that point as an artist to nurture the idea and to bring it to life. So,
do you like science at all? Are you into like physics?
I like science.
I like science. Do you ever see Nacho Libre? There's a line. I like science. When he's going to baptize him, like in the thing. So,
do you love Jack
it's
Black?
It reminds me of like of physics in a way, because you know there's the whole, everyone knows this, matter or energy can't be created, destroyed, it just transfers, right? Which basically means it dissipates as time goes on, right? So when you play music is just you hit a string, you're taking the energy of, like, let's say your hands into your guitar, it vibrates, and those vibrations go into the air, which is why you're hearing them right in your ears, and that vibration can go on infinitely. So every time you listen to AC/DC or whatever, Van Halen or Mr. Bungle on the radio or whatever, and it's a Green Day, and it's vibrating, it vibrates forever around the world for all of eternity. It just slows down. Right, so everything that's ever been said is still being said in some way,
essentially.
Yeah, it's like an echo, which was actually the name of one of my first albums that I put out. Was Echo.
Nice.
Because of that, because it has this like this forever thing to it.
Kind of reminds me, not that this is necessarily, it could be sort of tangential, but have you ever heard of the Schumann resonance? You know what that is?
No.
I don't know if I know it well enough to really explain it well. It's basically like supposedly the frequency of the Earth's vibration, or the something having to do with the wavelength of the Earth itself. Something like something around 8 hertz is apparently resonant with that frequency. And I'm forgetting what the Schumann resonance has to do more with the way that our atmosphere essentially forms like a bubble. You know what? I'm gonna have to back out of that.
Yeah,
one.
it's fine.
Yeah.
but our limited understanding, you and I, of the scientific method or the scientific
vibrations,
science of physics, music is the one kind of art form that plays around with physics, because you like send energy out like it's audio, which is waves, right, out into the universe or whatever, and it comes from somewhere. And I'm going to ask you again in a minute where that comes from. But do you tend to approach songwriting from like it comes to you, and then what happens? Do you write Do you write like a little riff on there? Do you write lyrics
I never
first?
try to make it happen. I always hear a lyric, and it makes me think of something else.
Oh, you hear it.
I'll hear,
Explain
I'll
that.
listen to a song, and I'll be like, "That's a cool
I got you.
lyric," and then it'll spawn off another idea for me, and I'll write a song off of that, or I'll write lyrics off of that. But for that's like the cheapest way for me to get an idea. The best way is just I'm in my own thoughts, and a lyric appears to me. Like a thought will come out, and I'll be like, "That's a nice lyric," and I know this is something having to do with The Artist's Way, which is a book I want to mention, but I'll mention that in a second. I'll know that if I take that first line that I hear as a lyric, and I just start writing off of that line, I'll always find a song in there. I've always been able to just follow the thread of the idea, and whether I like it or not, I think I'm better with words than I am with music. So most of my songs start with lyrics, and then I just put music under them. It's like an opportunity to just adorn poetry, kind of, and make it a little more interesting. And sometimes I'll get complicated with the music, but I usually try to keep it as simple as possible.
Have you ever written something and then realized what it means after the fact?
Yeah, a few times I've really scared myself because I'll like write in a fury, a fervor almost, both, and I'll get to the
fury
end.
and a fervor, you say?
Yeah,
both.
I get to the end and I won't know what's in there. I'll remember sometimes I'll write stuff that's weird or that's like, controversial or I've written horrible things in lyrics before because I was channeling an idea, or even stories and stuff. Like I'll write stories and just I'll write from someone else's perspective and use language that is totally inappropriate for me to use in today's world. I would never say it out loud, but in the creative space, I don't put that barrier up.
Yeah.
And I just follow the idea. And so sometimes, I'll like look back and I'll be like, "Whoa, this is harsh," or like judgmental, or like I'll feel like this one tune I played that we had in my band, most recent band, called the Dead Precedents, which we're posting videos on YouTube if y'all want to check it out. The Dead Precedents.
Just spell it.
Precedents, like Precedents. Precedents.
Perfect.
And
can you use it in a sentence?
Yeah,
I'm just
like the Supreme Court setting precedents.
There you go.
It's okay to take bribes and stay on the fucking stand.
It's like a spelling bee when they ask you to spell it and then use it in a sentence. So now that you're doing music with that band, can you call it a band?
Yeah, we were happening. Oh yeah, I was going to talk about Off Kilter. So we got this tune called Off Kilter. The band broke up, but the guitar player in the group wrote this tune. He wrote a song, wrote a guitar, bass line, drums. And he brought it to me, and I was like, "Oh, I got to come up with lyrics for this." And I just sort of mulled it over for a while, and the song, like, I ended up writing these sort of satirical, like, pop punk lyrics, which were kind of really a jab at Gen Z and like a lot of my opinions about some of the culture that's being trumpeted by the younger people. Evan, the guitar player from the Dead Precedents, he's like 25, I think, or 26 or 24, somewhere in his mid-20s. And so I was kind of like, it was like a subtle jab at him and his generation, but the lyrics were like really awesome. So that was one of those things where I was just like, oh, like I have to, like, a lot of really like dense wordplay and like subtle like fuck yous. But it also is, I don't know, satire is a whole other topic, something that I don't know how I feel about it, but like, because music and creativity and like, I like those things to try to be pure. Yeah. And when you start roping in satire and irony, it's like, whoa, hang on a second. And maybe the world's got enough irony in it already. Maybe not.
Well, so I think our era, right, the '90s and stuff, was very much about the rebellion of like your teenagehood, I guess, or just the rebellion of human beings. Like, all right, we're going to rebel against the norms of what society's doing. And I think in the last 20 years, 25 years, that's kind of a little different now. It's almost like, well, we just want to be entertained, or we want to have
done rebelling.
So I think I tend to, again, as I get older now, I'm 43 now, but I look back and I look at where I'm at now. I'm like, well, maybe I don't want to be the old man, like, oh, kids these days, making music, because they're expressing themselves in the way that they're feeling now, right? And who am I to judge what they're growing up in and what they
Sure.
feel and all that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So maybe I'm just overlooking, a whole part of the rainbow, I guess you can say, of like what they're seeing versus what I grew up in, because it was so different in the '90s. Like I said, it was very rebellious. The Nirvana thing was almost like punk 2.0. Like the '80s were like the Ramones and like CBG, which as a matter of fact, CBGB's was fucking cool. Have you ever?
No, never been.
I went to Ohio recently, and I got to see the awning from
they,
CBGB's. And I was like, I
moved it to
fucking
Ohio?
played. I was there. Like, I get to see that thing, and now it's in a museum somewhere, like in Ohio.
Oh, it's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Oh, I might have seen
like
it
the
there, because
awning.
I was there a few years ago.
But let's do this, because I think the battery's running low on this.
Oh.
So let's do this, okay? And I think we're coming up on an hour, so to speak. I like to have every songwriter that comes on here, at least now, this may change. What advice would you give to someone that's young, just starting out, maybe not even young, they're just starting out writing music, writing songs?
Oh, sure.
Like what piece of advice that you learned too late, let's say, that you would give to them?
That it's never too late. I've restarted like 3 times. The harpeji here, this is another new instrument for me.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I started playing this is because I knew that I could start playing and not be able to compare myself to other people, because there was nobody out there
Yeah,
playing.
there's
So
not
everything I play, it sounds awesome to me, because I'm not like, oh, I don't sound like Trey, or oh, I don't sound
Sure.
like Stevie Wonder. Yeah, so it's never too late. Whether you're 13 or 33 or 103, like, music is there for you. That, and take your time, because there's so many people out there trying to be somebody, and they don't even know who they are.
Yeah.
And like that's bullshit. Don't be bullshit, please.
And a lot of times they want to tell you what you should be doing when they themselves are not.
One of the crazy things about the culture today is there's people that make a living telling you how to be like them.
That's true.
By telling other people how to make a living, and it's like, how far up your own ass can you stick your head?
Well, tell us how you really feel, Shelby.
Dude, I
so-
got the vinegar, man, and the salt.
Let's do this, because this is a music podcast, right? Are you ready to play? Do you need a minute? Do you want me to speak about?
Yeah, I think I just got to adjust a couple things.
Yeah,
and
let's get you set
get into
up.
position.
I'm gonna talk to the camera here. You go ahead and
Okay.
get yourself set up. If you can give me a little close up over here. So if you're interested in being on the podcast, we'd love to have you on. If you're a songwriter, you're a musician, you're in the music industry, whatever it is, or if you want to just talk about how music affects you and what have you, hit me up. We'll talk, and we'll try and get you on the show if it makes sense. If you're a sponsor and you think what you're watching is good, and you want to help us continue to do this, we'd love to have you as a sponsor. And in October, things are going to change a little bit. We've got some exciting things coming already. This is only episode 3, and we're already making moves. But stay tuned for what's coming. And for the guests that took the chance to be on the show in the last few episodes, I appreciate it. Most of them are my friends, and I love you all. And I'm gonna have my band on. Yeah, I'm gonna have my band on soon too. I told them today during our 4-hour practice that they're gonna have to be on. And I told them I want their honest opinion of me in the band. So you might find out a little bit about Patrick that you don't know from my bandmates, and what they like and what they don't like about me. But in the meantime here, Shelby, what are you going to play here?
Yeah, I think I'll play that tune that I mentioned earlier. I had prepared a different one, but this song is called Golden Lights.
And then again, just one more time, what's the name of the instrument there that you're playing?
This is called a harpeji.
Harpeji. So
Yeah.
kind of a cool thing. So whenever you're ready, go for it.
Never ever knew I could feel this way. All that is behind me now, the past has been erased. Sometimes I remember, boy, I used to be. I wish that I could go back now and tell him he can leave. Now that I've grown older, the feelings still remain. A couple scars and my humor is all that has changed. If I could go back now, I would do it all the same. And I'd pat myself on the back, yeah, I would, for the man that I became. You can't touch me up here. You can't touch me now. You can't touch me up here now. What's to come of the future? More of the same. I guess that would be fine by me. How could I complain? A little glimpse of life is all, it's all we'll ever see. Hold it tightly inside yourself and pretend that you feel complete. You can't touch me up here. You can't touch me now. You can't touch me up here now. There's golden lights above me, and I'm never looking down. There's golden lights there above me.
All right.
Thank you.
Brother, that's an amazing sounding instrument. And I think it's just because you're playing it, but that's pretty good.
You know, well, if you want, you can play it. You want to check it out?
No. I'm not going to play it on camera because
Oh, yeah, I meant
it's going to sound
sorry, I
terrible
meant
compared
after,
to...
yeah.
We'll play it afterwards. And speaking of, we're coming to the end of the episode here. Shelby, brother,
Patrick.
thank you for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it. I know it's a long shot. You came on, you're like, what is this guy doing? He's inviting me
this
to the
was
basement. And I shook your hand for just a little too long right there, too.
I was wondering about
But
that.
again, one more time, what's your the SoundCloud and all that stuff? Just
yeah, I've got
throw it out there so that
I've got a Instagram called Michael Shelby Music. I've also got a Bandcamp. You can search Michael Shelby on Bandcamp, and that's pretty. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got for you right now.
And keep an eye out for him. Okay, keep an eye out. And I want to tell you guys here. Get in close. Can you come in close? Listen, you better subscribe, okay? Subscribe, like it if you're looking at it on YouTube. And I'm going to tell you this. If you don't like it, I'm going to come out there. I'm going to find you. I'm going to find you. I'm going to find your family. And then I'm going to send letters to each of them. A nice little card that just says, please subscribe and like. And maybe
Obviously
put a
need a
little
reminder.
comment.
You only need a reminder.
Yeah, just real gentle like. Real gentle like. Real gentle like. Shelby.
Thanks,
Thank
Patrick.
you for coming.
This has been a pleasure.
That wasn't a threat. That was...
a promise.
Yeah. There's a promise. Subscribe. But if you have someone you want to see on the show, you have musicians that are friend of yours, and you're like, oh, I'd love it if they were on your show, and you interviewed them and got to the bottom of what they were doing, tell them to email us, or you email us, message me, whatever it is. And thank you for coming on and playing that thing. I know it was a little bit of a pain in the ass getting this
we got
instrument
it going.
set up. And
I appreciate you accommodating it. It's an unorthodox thing.
Yeah, I know.
I appreciate the flexibility, Patrick. Thank you.
But please subscribe, all that stuff. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you guys for watching, and that's it.
Take care.